This conference will now be recorded.
So today, what I would like to cover is I would like to cover something called client-side performance testing. So how many of you know what is client-side performance testing? Anyhow, I'll be showing how to do this client-side performance tools. Before that, how many of you have done this client-side performance? Anyone?
Yeah, I worked on it. Okay.
So what does I mean? What is the main objective of doing this client-side performance testing? If you take any of the applications, right? I mean, if you go back and see the different applications that you are testing, every time we test, right? We do any flavor of performance testing. We always keep focusing on something called server side, right? To understand what happens on the server, but we did not mention anything in scope like what is happening in the browser. So what did you do from your client-side performance testing?
Yeah, actually, in addition to doing the server-side performance testing using load runner or any load generation tools, we need to have a clear picture on the rendering times on the browser. So, based on the usage analysis that we get, like if the application is used in IE or Chrome, majority of the users are using those browsers. Definitely, we need to know how much time it takes to render on the browser side. So for that, already all the browsers they use that navigation timing API, using which we can from the console also we can see a particular page load time directly from the browser developer tools option. And other than that, there are plenty of tools like web page test API. I used web page test API that gives recommendation on how the JavaScripts are used, how the image sizes are used, how the CDNs are used. So it gives a score, detailed score on each and every aspect. And along with our load runner report, when we share this test conducted during the load test, it may give a better insight, and we can easily tell the developer to focus on the areas wherever the improvement is needed. Up to that, I have done. I have used a web page test.
Right, excellent. So client-side performance testing, right? If you take any of the application like e-commerce application like Amazon or Flipkart or any other application that you buy something online, you have too much of dynamic content that keeps on changing or that keeps scrolling every 1 hour or every half an hour. The content keeps changing with different videos that are streaming with different ads or with different high quality images, CSS sheets or different HTML content. Every time you see it, right? So you have too much of content that is completely dynamic and that keeps changing every time. So it is not only the performance is being impacted only from the server side, it is also from the browser side. And what you have to remember is not every user will be using the same configuration, the same browser, or the same type of internet speed. So the performance varies from configuration to configuration that the user is using, and the type of browser that he is using, and whatever the point just discussed just now, like page rendering time, right? The speed of the page rendering also depends upon some various factors. But when you are testing and worried about something called performance of your web application, it is everyone's job to test and analyze not only what happens on the server but also what is happening exactly on the browser. Because if you take most of the commercial performance tools or monitoring solutions, right? Uh, the main important point is what are all the different elements that are taking so much of time to render or so much of time to execute the content from the browser side. So all the APM tools that you have in the market, like Dynatrace or CA APM, they are definitely going to take care of all the different metrics that are available for all the flavors of web app DB servers. but no APM solution has taken the client-side performance testing into consideration since last 2 years. So there are some new agents or new plugins that came up with some of the APM solutions. Now they're taking all the different metrics into considerations to see how much time it is taking to render. So how much time it is taking to execute from the browser side, and they have some different metrics to understand what exactly is happening from the browser side. So if you take from the client side performance testing, the first important metric that you have to worry is the page load time. Every user navigates from one page to another, invoking the home page, like he logs in or he search for some product. So every time the user goes from one page to one page, the most important parameter from client side performance testing is the page load time. Okay, in all the web application, the only metric that everyone wants to know is the page load time and the page rendering time. Okay, so page load time is basically the total time that it is taking to load all the content. The page rendering time is like the total time that has been taken for loading the immediate next page. Okay, there is a difference. And if you take the recent survey from the Yahoo, 80% of the application response times are spent downloading the different HTML images that you have that are available in the Amazon site, or the different videos that are streaming. There are some different JavaScripts for every page. You must be knowing, right? JSPs, JavaScript pages. You have style sheets. Style sheets are nothing but the alignment of the content in the page. Like you will have the boxes, you will have the content. Putting all of them in a proper order is nothing but putting the style sheets or the scripts or the images in order. All these activities will be taken care by UI UX designer. You must be knowing, right? There is a unique skill set called front-end UI development, which completely talks about HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery. Now people started using Angular 9, I guess. It started with Angular 2, Angular 4, Angular 6. Then people also started working with React.js, Node.js, Knockout.js, EXT.js, and there are like you have multiple skill sets in front-end UI development. So basically, what these front-end UI developers will do is they develop a web page. They take care of all the images, compressing of images, the style sheets, the JavaScript pages. So what they do is whatever the performance optimization that happens from the UI UX developer side is to speed up the response times of all the execution or the rendering or the loading that is happening from the browser. So whatever the slowness that you see, you may use some different tools to understand what each component in a page is doing. You can calculate that way, but you cannot directly optimize, you cannot directly make some changes. Being a performance engineer, you cannot do all of that activities on from the UI UX side. So if you want to change any one of them, you need to have some required skills from the UI UX development side, at least from the JavaScripting side, to understand how you can optimize and how you can put all the files into a single file in a JavaScript file to optimize the performance. That is not our job. So, but again, doing performance testing, client-side performance testing, you use some different tools. Okay, you try to analyze the speed or the scalability or stability or sustainability of an application. You can also check few memory leaks on how the application is working under load, and you can look for some bottlenecks. You cannot touch anything directly from the client side. Okay, so as many of you know, the performance testings, okay, the types of testings are divided mainly into two parts. One is server side and one is client side. So when you are testing everything on the server side, you are basically testing the logic and readiness of your application. That means that you continuously monitor the web server, app server, and database server, and you have all your metrics ready. You configure all of them with your APM, and you see what is happening. But when you come to the client side, you are not only testing the server side, you are doing an end-to-end testing. So you are basically calculating the response times directly from the browser to the server. So this end-to-end testing, when you call this end-to-end testing, or when you add something like we are trying to conduct end-to-end performance testing and engineering practice in your non-functional test plan, it means that you are automatically adding your client-side testing as well as the server-side performance testing. Okay. So to verify how application is fast, or how efficient it is, or how quickly an application is responding for a given request, you need to use the client-side performance tests. And the LoadRunner also recently came up with some client-side performance testing feature. I don't know how many of you have installed this LoadRunner 2020 version. So once you stop the recording, it will tell you what are all the different contents that have been recorded. Okay, in the record, if you go back to the recording report, not only in 2020, it already came up with 12.66. So in that version also, it will clearly tell you in the recording report what type of content it has recorded. Okay, what are all the different types of additional non-HTML, non-HTML content, the different HTMLs, or the different video streaming content that has been recorded. You can see everything in that report. Okay, so basically when we test, right, when we test any of the application, when we do load test, or when we try to check the response time of any web application, from a single user point of view, we have to execute two scenarios. For the first user is, sorry, the first scenario is a user coming into the web page for the first time. So that is the actual response time. It is nothing but without cache, right? So, and the second point is the user coming back to our page with cache. So can you tell me what is the difference between a user coming to the web page for the very first time and the user coming back to the page with the same cache?
Sorry,
Anyone?
asking, what is the question?
The user coming to the web page for the very first time, that means that the very first time the user is trying to access the application. The second thing is the user is coming back to the web page using the cache.
Yes, like the very first time we will see longer response time, because right from the establishing the TCP IP connection, and then getting the resources from all the CDNs and constructing the pages at the server side. So, and coming from the network, it will take time. I mean, we can see that clearly. The first time usage would be always a higher response time. And when we go as a repeated user, and we can see a drastic difference in response time due to the caching implemented. All the static resources will be cached at the client side if the web page is designed in the right way.
Yeah.
That is a major difference. I would say response time would be lower for second time onwards.
But what could be the best practice? If you're testing a load test with 500 or 1200 users, every time a user comes, if you want to simulate the real time happening of all the users, what they really do in real time. So how do you simulate them? Is it without cache or with cache?
Without
Without cache, we will do in load testing.
Yes.
That is from load runner runtime settings. We will do that that setting. Like every time, like a new user, we will treat that. But for analysis side, from client side, we will try to get both the uh, response time details, like with as a first time user and also as a repeated user, we will take the response time and compare it.
Okay. Okay. So every time you do this load testing, right, you always need to work every user with without cache. It is not with cache, because every time you use a cache, right, it will show you a very big difference with respect to the response times. And this cache also, where is the place the cache resides? Anyone?
And the
Like, is it
browser,
impacting the browser or the server?
and the browser and server side caching also possible in some architectures.
Right. You also have something like cache concepts in Oracle database servers as well. But every time when you talk about this cache concept, right, what you need to make sure is the cache that we actually have here is talking only about the browser. I mean, for the topic that we are currently discussing, whatever the cache that we have here is, it is completely talking about the browser. So always, if you want to work with heavy user loads, you always need to simulate the real load test without cache from the browser. So you are making every user like a new user, that he comes in, he does some activity, and then he calculates the end-to-end response times of that particular activity. Okay. So basically, whatever the client side performance issues that you see, that are because of inefficient JavaScript. The reason is because the client side code is completely written in JavaScript. Okay. It is retrieved from different remote servers, and it is executed whenever the browser parser gets to the part of the page. I'll tell you what is parser. Okay. And if you have this JavaScript at the top of the page, it will be executed when the parser kicks in, and it will delay the rendering of the rest of the page. So basically what they do is they directly don't upload the complete JavaScript at the top of the page. So that is not the best practice. Every time the developers keep all the JavaScript file at the very top of the page. So the browser parser, what it will do is it will interrupt calling the execution from the remote servers, and it will delay the complete rendering of the rest of the page. So the best practice from the UI UX designers is to have this JavaScript at the bottom, and so that the parser will not interrupt when it is trying to call the code from the remote servers, and it will not slow down the rendering of the rest of the page. That is why the reason many of the UI UX developers, what they do is they put some callback functions, and they put all these Java JSP pages or JSP commands directly at the bottom of the page, so that it will not delay the rendering of the entire page, and it will quickly load the page with all the content that is available. It means that the page load time or the page rendering time will automatically get minimized when the JavaScript file is kept at the bottom in the client side code. Okay, this is one of the best practice. Again, we'll not break our head for this particular reason, but this can be one of the performance optimization, and you will not, I mean to say, no performance engineer will not have any privilege to touch or to enhance or to modify any of the client side code until and unless you are a JavaScript developer for the next for a minimum of 2 to 3 years. Okay. So and another point is, when you load all this JavaScript from many of the remote servers, it the time basically it takes to render a page or to load a page, to load all the content, it depends not only on the server speed, it doesn't depends on the network bandwidth that you're using. It depends on the page complexity, or how the JavaScript is being served, and what are all the different types of JavaScripts that have been incorporated into the client-side code. Basically, what all the UI UX developers for a better performance, what they do is they consolidate all your JavaScript files into a single file, and they try to improve the rendering time and page load time. It means that instead of downloading multiple JavaScript files from the browser, it will directly download. When they consolidate all the multiple JavaScript files into a single file, the user's browser will directly download in a single go, and it overall improves the performance of the client side. Okay, so that is why the reason when different JavaScript files are written, okay, so what they try to do is they consolidate all of them, and they make user to call that particular single file in one go, and they try to improve the load time and rendering time. Okay, so and what they every time what they do is they will make sure that it it won't be downloaded every time, because they try to put all the different JavaScript files not to get cached. So every time if the files or every time the download is happening and it is getting stored in the cache, the performance or the response time of that particular user's browser session will be not accurate. And what it does is every time for the very first time it calculates the actual response time, and from the next time if it is saving in the cache memory, it will start giving the very better response times, which is not accurate again. So they use something called minifier. You need to, this is one of the best practice that is being followed from the UI UX developers or the front end UI development team. What they do is to run all the JavaScript code, they run something called minifier. This is also called minimizer. So when they run or when they incorporate this minifier or minimizer concept in the JavaScript coding concept, what it does is it will remove all the extra comments or extra spaces that you have and everything else that you have in the client-side program which is written in the JavaScript. So it will remove all of them, and it will improve the performance, and it will improve the page load time and rendering time. When we talk about client-side performance testing, the main metrics that we always talk about are only two different points. One is the page load time and the page rendering time. When you, as a good practice from the JavaScript developers, when they try to run this minimizer or minifier in the JavaScript code, what it does is it will completely remove the comments, extra spaces, and everything else that is not really required for client-side performance programs. So they combine and compress all the JavaScript files into one single file, where they can reduce the JavaScript size that is being sent to different user browsers, and it will make sure that they are not getting overloaded and they're not taking too much of time when every user is visiting the application or the website. So this is one point. The second point is this is one of the main important scope of client-side performance testing. And if you take all the different client-side performance testing challenges, right, there are many tools. If you look at many of the job descriptions, with many of the product-based companies. So if you look at any of the performance testing evaluation, now the client-side performance testing is one of the part. So there are n number of tools, okay, like Lighthouse, Google Speed, Web Page Test, and LoadRunner is doing JMeter plugin and JMeter Selenium configuration. There is one plugin where you can do client-side performance testing. There is a PageSpeed application from Google, Web Page Test, Dynatrace. There are many browser plugins like Net Export. So there are many tools. It is irrespective of any tool that you use, right? That is not required. I mean, you can use any of the tool, but most of the times when people start doing this client-side performance testing from the customer point of view or from the business point of view, it is always again you need to use an open source solution to test the complete client-side performance. So when we talk about this front-end performance testing challenges, you need to check the connection speed, the network speed, and you also need to check the server load and why the browser is spending too much of time to load the HTML or the different content like graphics or HD images and other content that is being displayed, right? You need to only worry about the browser. When you talk about client-side performance testing, you need to go back to the browser and you need to see why the browser is taking too much of time or why it is spending too much of time for all the different content that is available. Okay, so in these challenges, so what are the different what type of content do you actually measure when you do this client-side performance testing? What is that you actually measure in this page?
We measure like how much time it takes to load the entire page, and also to there are various events that happen during this rendering or the entire page to load. So we can even get the breakup of all those events like DOM loading and paint event, and so we can get up to that level if we inject the code or if we write the script in the developer tools.
Okay. Can anyone tell me what is this one?
This is the source page, the view source code.
Okay. What information you have in this source code?
Yeah, in this we will have how the page is constructed, and it will have all the information about from where the images and JavaScripts, CSS files, everything is pulled.
Okay. So every time we test, right, the main important points or the challenges that we have to consider for client-side performance testing are how quickly the page is loading is the first point. Okay. So whatever the different text that is visible text that is being loaded or downloaded or not, whatever the different content that you're seeing here respect to different headings, headers, or different drop downs that you have, you need to check for all the content. And the second thing is, the third point is you need to look at all the different graphical content. Graphical content is nothing but if I refresh this page again, you will see a different sorry, you will see a different content that keeps changing every time, right? So if we click on this one, you will see some different content that is being displayed. This is the offer for now, and in the next one hour, you will see a different offer. So and you also need to completely check the formatting and the layout. This is nothing but CSS. It is nothing but aligning all the different tiles and the images in order. And whatever the links, whatever the buttons or whatever the different forms that you have are nothing but they are called functional elements. Okay. You need to make before you get this page for your performance testing, you need to make sure that all the links or CSS forms, all the images, you need to make sure that everything, all the functional behavior is working as expected. Yeah. And you need, if there is any specific requirement on understanding the priority, or if I want to click this one, it has to load instantly, and it should have some expected performance actually. So how quickly the functional elements become responsive is the question here. So There will be some of the use cases that will be defined as part of client-side performance testing. In our current project, we have an application like this, and we have some uh, top 5 pages from the users that are being accessed. Okay, we have to do the client-side performance testing, as well as we have to record all these activities. Like, we have some 5 different high priority scenarios. We before we test that, we sit with the client and we understand the priorities of all the different functional elements, which can become responsive at all the times, okay, to all the user actions. And main importantly, every time we consider these 5 to 6 prioritized use cases, we completely calculate the entire page response time of all the functionality under load. Okay, and most importantly, when we do, the last point is, when we do this client-side performance testing, we try to identify which elements are not responding, okay, or whatever we feel that are not really important in a page, and we try to understand when they load. If you use the same site in IGE lower version site, you don't see this image. Instead of not no, you can't see this image, and you simply see a cross mark here. That means that this particular content is not being displayed, which is a performance bottleneck. When you don't see this image and you see a complete blank page with a cross mark here, that means that it is not able to download this particular content, and it will automatically lose the business, right? The main deal in this page for now is this M21 mobile. You can't see this Citibank pop up here with the price, with the spec, and with the product name. If you can't see this here, it means that the business vendor is automatically losing his business, because the user who is trying to access this particular content is not able to see this content. In terms of the functional elements that are not being displayed, or the content, the HD image, that is some compatibility issue from here, or it can be because of some JavaScript report server execution being called, and that is not able to execute and not able to invoke this particular image. So there can be multiple reasons for this particular task. So what you need to identify here is to understand all these activities or all the different content, how it is loading, how quickly it is loading, or how much time it is loading, and what are all the different content that is being blocked to access the page from different browsers. So in such cases, what you have to do is you need to use a tool for client-side performance testing to understand the degradations, the slowness, and using appropriate tool will tell you the individual time that has been taken for all the different contents to load, to render, and accordingly it will publish you a report. When you get this report, you send the report to the respective UI UX team, get that sorted, and again you retest it until and unless you see the issue gets closed. I mean, it has to perform better. Okay, so, and when you test this one, when your customer wants you to test the same application in the environment, you need to have an exact real world environment with real content and new code. So most of the times, whenever you have some release or some change or some fix in the production, you will not have the same change in code in the staging environment or in the QA environment. So just testing on a QA environment without the new code, or without, which is not matching the exact real world environment with real content and with new code, it makes no sense. So even if you use some multiple tools, okay, for client-side performance testing, when you don't have any of the environment which is not having the exact matching of the real world environment, when you even if you test with multiple tools, it will not make any sense. So every time when you test, whatever that you have in the production, you should have the same content with same code with real content in the QA environment, and when you test it, you will get the exact result of what exactly happening from the browser side, especially from the client side. Okay, so finally what you have to understand is where is the issue from. You do server side testing. Is it like I have a question to all of you now. Is it like the first thing that you do is you test everything on the server side first and then you test client side, or you test server side and client side parallelly? How do you do it?
No. Based on the recent development in web development, now the architects are suggesting to focus first at the client side because they are considered as low-hanging fruits, and then go to server side. Due to this agile DevOps and all these changes, and also the way the web development is happening in a rapid pace, that's what they are suggesting. But earlier it was not the case. Earlier we used to do all the performance engineering and testing from server side focused, and then we finally do the client side just whenever we were unable to find out the root cause by doing all the exercises, then we go to client side. But now they are suggesting to go from this side.
Right. I mean, most of the times they are actually trying to uh, add everything in one place. Okay. Client side performance testing is completely a different part. The first thing what they want to do is the issue from the server side. Okay. Once they decide or once they conclude that it is not from the server side, then only they come back and check for something called client side. Even if you take many of the applications, many of the projects, they are not really doing that good with respect to client side performance testing. So every time they iterate the same process again and again. They do multiple rounds of testing, and they say and they still say that we are still facing the same issue. And finally, the customer or the business team or the development team, they come to a conclusion. Okay, it must be an issue with the coding side. And if you touch any of the code snippet right now, it will completely show some bad impact on other existing functionalities which are already working fine. So they're coming to such conclusions. So every time if you see some high response time of a particular incident, so you keep uh, doing some hands-on exercising on that particular activity to improve or optimize some sort of performance from all the server side. So even if it is not getting fixed, then you come back and you go to the reset performance and you see the different content and you try to optimize the performance of client side with the help of your UI UX teams. And if you still see the same issues, what is your next step now? Including the issue is not from the server side. Then I came back. I did so much of R&D on the client side. I'm trying to see whether the issue is from the front end or from the page code or from the JavaScript. I did all my R&Ds. To some extent, I have optimized my response time from 11 seconds to 9 seconds. So what is that still I can do better for my application? It's server side, client side, what I can improve this 9 seconds response time.
I think then next area we should focus on the network layer.
Okay. So what do you see from the network layer?
Now, based on the client side analysis, also we can see that time to buffer, how much time it takes, like time to first buffer.
Right,
So based
right.
on that, if we see that is higher, then we can see that the network is causing the delay.
So most of you must not be knowing this time to first buffer metric actually. Anyone of you know what does this indicate? What does this? This is a direct saying actually. Time to first buffer.
Yeah, sorry, time to first byte, I think. Time to first byte, right?
Is it? Is it time to first byte?
I think so. And either first buffer or first byte, something, one or the other. But TTFB is acronym. We
First byte.
first
Okay.
byte, yes.
Okay. So what does this say in performance testing? Allow me one.
So it is like from the time when we make the request, it reaches the server side, and then server side programs, they process this request, and then they construct the response, and then that response is sent over the HTTP protocol, and then it reaches the client. In our case, it's Vusion. The first byte when it reaches, up to that time, it is calculated as a TTFB, time to first byte.
What I'm trying to ask you. Oh my God. No, basically this time to first byte graph, if you see, it will directly tell you whether the issue is from the server side or from the network side. Okay. The main use of this metric is to understand from where the issue is. Is it from the network side or is it from the server side? To talk more about this, I have to show you one document. So I did not send you this document, right? Monitor's guide. I did not send you this document, right? Did you get this
No,
document called Monitor's Guide?
no.
Did not get. Okay. Okay. So finally, concluding the issue is nothing but again. So for the question that I have asked, if you want to improve the performance of any, response time of any particular transaction, after doing all of your R&D from the server side and client side, only possible solution that you have is what you need to identify all the individual components that you have in the infrastructure. You need to buy a valid pay model of your APM solution. You need to download all your agents and you need to configure all your components that you have in the infrastructure. Configure all your metrics with the type of thresholds that you have, with the type of you can create alerts, alarms, and anomalies. Every time a specific crossing that particular value.
RK, your voice is fading. We are not able to hear you.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. Yeah.
1 minute. I'm sorry. So the most important point is you need to buy the appropriate pay model of your APM solution that you're using. Okay. Before you buy that, you need to understand the application architecturally. You need to have a detailed understanding on all the different individual components that you have in your application. For example, if your application is completely Dockerized, it's completely managed by microservices. Okay, you need to monitor every one of them. Okay, you need to monitor all your microservices. You need to monitor all your Docker instances. You need to, if you are using a complete CI/CD pipeline, you need to monitor. You need to configure to every component, and you need to create most of alarms, anomalies, and you need to set some thresholds. Like if you give the minimum and maximum values, Even if in CA APM, if I'm configuring my agent to any of my target instance that I wanted to monitor, so I will set some values. For if you take a WebLogic instance, I will set a CPU saying that it should not exceed 70% and it should not exceed 80%. There will be three different type of alerts that you can create. If it is crossing some 65% of the CPU, it is saying that something like caution, you get a message. That is nothing but alert. Okay. Then for the first thing that you, after 65%, if it is crossing, you'll get an alert. If it is crossing 75%, it is getting you will get an alarm. And it is crossing 85%, you will get an anomaly. Okay. So it is all, you can set it from your side, from the APM side. But if you want to conclude the exact issue, like, is the issue from the client side or the server side or from a particular component from the architecture, you need to configure all the metrics. You need to configure all the different types of alerting messages to see what is happening. That is the only way to identify the exact root cause. If someone is asking you a question saying that I have got a response time of 13 seconds, how do you identify issue? Is that from the server side or from the client side? You give all your possible solutions, but still the interviewer is not convinced. The only answer for this question is you need to monitor everything in one place. Simple. If you have a Oracle database server, you need to configure all the metrics, and you need to understand if I have PGA, what is the minimum value of PGA that I can set? If I'm running a load test with 1500 users, what is that SGA I have to define? What is the PGA I have to define? Still, most of the people are not sure how much heap I'm supposed to set. How do I define my heap? Okay, I see so many issues. And yesterday there was a question in one of the technical WhatsApp group. My XMS and XMX values are 4 GB and 6 GB. Now, whatever the heap dump that I have taken is 7 GB. Why is it so? Anyone? Anyone have an idea about that?
Sorry, like XMX, how much?
Minimum and maximum heap are, let's say that 4 and 8 GB. Okay.
Okay.
But whatever the heap dump that I have taken, the heap dump size 9 or 11 GB. Can that happen? My heap dump file is size is more than the minimum and maximum of heap size that I have defined.
Yeah. That,
Whatever the heap that has been captured, can be of any size, right? Because we don't know what it is capturing, what communication is recording, right? Did you get my question?
yes, yes. Like it is not just the size of that heap memory. The entire, like the dump is about the
The
entire
information that has
data
been captured,
representation.
right?
Yes, about the objects inside the heap. So it
That
can be bigger. Yeah.
that file has got nothing to do with minimum and maximum heap size that you said.
Yes. Got it.
It is a simple question that can put you in confusion. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. So most of the reason why we would like to talk more about client-side performance testing is it is only for the sake of interest, nothing else. Because someone asks you what are the different performance priorities or what do you actually check from the client side. You only check the page load time, page rendering time, the basic text layout, and the different functional elements that it can work or they may not be fully functional, right? And you see whether all the images that you have is it properly being displayed or not is what you check. Okay. And if you talk about the scope of client-side performance testing, now as a best practice from all the center of excellence groups, client-side performance testing is now a best practice implementation, and it is mandatory in all aspects of performance. Okay. So if someone is asking you what is that value adding that you came up with your last assignment, simple thing is you simply add the client side performance testing to your existing performance testing plan. Add your scope of your client side performance testing, define the scope of your client side performance testing in the non-functional test plan, and make this available, and it should be agreed by the client. It will not include many of the important points. It is just a client side analysis of all aspects, and obviously you try to do this only to identify the slowness and bottlenecks, and mainly identifying the risk related to client side performance. Okay. So another question is, which environment you have to use for client side performance testing here?
Since it is single user based, we can do it on production as well. But if we have to validate the code before it is going to prod, then when we run the load test, we can do this analysis in perf also, perf environment.
Right. It's always a good practice is to run everything on QA environment. I mean dedicated performance environment, which is a matching environment to the real environment with real content and new code that you have. And there are multiple metrics. Okay, we'll talk about that tomorrow. But a simple thing is you can. There are many tools like web page speed, Dynatrace, web page test, Google speed, page speed, and there are Lighthouse browser plugins. But GC metrics is one of the excellent client-side performance testing tool, and you can just start. You can play with all of the different options that you have. And I'll show you tomorrow what is that exactly you need to measure.
Is that tool only with a single user or multiple users?
No, this client-side performance testing is only with a single user most of the times.
So we can use a true client protocol in Roadrunner.
You can just
No, usually the true client response times, I mean, like,
are very high.
it may not give the breakup. Like, if you want to do analysis, I'm not sure whether it gives that level of detail, but we will still get the end-to-end response time, including the rendering time. But these tools, page analysis tools, they will give the breakdown of the page load, entire page load.
If you see here, it is saying that place your JavaScript at the bottom. This is one of the improvement. Okay. So it is talking about like this. These are all the different unifying JavaScript, unifying HTML. You will see all of these different metrics, and it will tell you how much time it is being taken. Okay. And all the JavaScript files, it is also talking about different JavaScript file URLs. It is telling that the grade is red here. It means that these are all the main top 3 or 4 that you need to optimize. So there is a separate documentation, and I'll tell you what are the different things that you can monitor and what are the different alerts that you can create. Okay, how you can understand all these metrics tomorrow. Okay, it is not just copy pasting the URL and putting it here. There is a lot of other stuff that you need to understand here. Like what are all these different things that are saying, that are clearly indicating what you need to understand. What are these metrics saying? How many requests, or what is the total page size, or what is the total load time? What is the page speed score? What are all these different? There is another important point called the CDL, content delivery. I'll tell you tomorrow. We'll also use 2 to 3 tools and see the difference. We'll test the same URL and see why it is giving the different numbers with different tools. Okay. Tomorrow we'll talk more in detail about client-side performance testing and how we can test it. I should have one cracked version of the tool. Let me try downloading that, and if that tool is downloaded, I can explain you more in detail. If I'm successfully installing that, I'll share the same thing on a Drive. You can also try to install that. Okay, that is not a commercial version. That is a cracked version. Do not install it for your official purpose. You can do some R&D, or you can try some different sites on your personal laptop, but don't try to record anything on your office applications. If you record, your job is gone. Simple. You try to record anything with the cracked version, your job is gone. IP is recorded, and it will be a security breach, especially for people who are working in banking and healthcare domains. Do not try to use any of the cracked versions on any of the servers. If you have a sample dump files, you can get that. You can analyze that. That is not a big deal, but don't try to use them on your official applications. All right. So yeah, that's all for today. Tomorrow we'll talk about all the and for client-side performance testing, and you can prepare all of them. This client-side performance testing topic, certification, or I mean, whatever we discussed it so far.
RK,
Yeah. That, hello.
yeah, it's okay now. Previously, we were
Okay.
not able to hear you.
My throat is bad. Sorry for that. Okay. So whatever the documentation I give as part of this client-side performance testing, and what are all the bottlenecks, I'll give some 5 to 6 list of bottlenecks. If someone is asking you, this particular concept will help you to get some opportunity. That's all. Because for client-side performance testing, there is no strict constant strategy that is being followed, but different people use different tools actually. Whatever the cracked version, I'm going to share it with you tomorrow. That is one of the important tool which can give you the complete briefing and in-depth analysis of all the different metrics from the client side. Okay, and there is another important question like what is HAR file? That is HAR file, right? Not sure what is it.
Yeah, HTTP archive file.
No. Even in the load runner, you have something called HAR file, HAR file, right?
Yes, that is HTTP archive.
What is that HAR file mean? What does that do?
That captures all our request and response, HTTP request and response. We can export from our browser tools, from browser developer tools, whatever the
The total
navigation that we do.
communication,
Yeah.
right? The total communication that happens between the browser and the server with respect to requests and responses, all that information will be saved and stored in HAR file. Okay, that is one important question that will you will be asked every time when you say that I work with client-side performance testing. Okay. So tomorrow I'll show you how to do this client-side performance testing. I'll tell you all the different tools that we have, and it is not a very big rocket science. But when you can mention in your current project, you can add your roles and responsibilities into client-side performance testing with GTmetrix and other tool. I'll give you another tool. Once I get that, once I'm successfully installing that, I'll update you in the WhatsApp group so that we can talk about that more in detail tomorrow. All right.